Hi there. Welcome back. I'm Camille.
I'm just crossing my legs. Sorry, everybody. I'm Gretchen. Thanks for coming back to Starting Over. If you haven't visited with us before, we're thankful that you're here.
Yeah, we have a podcast and we have a YouTube channel. So anything starting over is us.
And exactly what does that mean, Camille?
Well, I think if people listen to us a couple of times, they'd understand that we're basically helping people shift their mindset, their mood set, and realizing that they have the ability to choose their moment. They can choose their life. Look, our moment that we choose right now is our future, right?
Yeah, whatever we think about today is
Yes.
probably going to show up tomorrow. So that's why it's really important that you are aware, that we are aware of our thoughts, because we are not living by default.
Right.
We are creating at all times.
Consciously creating.
Yeah, and so I know that I didn't really realize this until a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And you think about my whole adult life, I didn't realize this.
Right?
And, now I think, oh, I can see why this thing happened in my life or this thing happened in my life. Where was my focus?
Right.
Right.
Well, and I think we're so autopilot lately. The phone, scrolling, we're so busy. There's so much information flying at us all the time. Are we really at choice? Are we really in charge of our mood, and are we in charge of our day? Probably not likely. A lot of us are on autopilot. I find myself that way. It's like, okay, and I turn off my phone. I turn off I don't want to scroll. I just want to breathe and be. And then I kind of go, okay, where am I at? What am I feeling? What am I sensing? Yeah.
Right. I know this morning, and this is kind of my challenge, is when I wake up, I listen to things and I try to blah, 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 get myself into this space that I need to. But then I start thinking like, oh, I need to get going. I need to get up. I need to get going. And I'm like, I haven't tuned in the way I want to, but I got a time frame.
Yeah. Yeah. We all do.
So then I'm like, okay, well, maybe while I'm getting dressed or putting makeup on, I'll listen to something. And somehow I think I sort of get into that. But what we kind of want to talk about today is relationship etiquette.
Yeah.
Etiquette in your relationship. So what does that mean?
Well, there's rules. I mean, there needs to be some rules about that. I mean, when do you quit talking to other people? How far are you in the relationship before your family knows you? I mean, there's just things that you're gauging, right? I think a good year is do all seasons with somebody before you really lock into a commitment. But I kind of think that if you have other people around you, look, I'll tell you what causes the most fights is other people. It isn't you guys fighting each other. It's typically best friends or family members that don't like you or don't like her, and so people just occupy their time and they gossip about each other or whatever. But if you have an ex, like, what do you think about friends? Like, can men have female friends? Can women have male friends?
I think it's a case by case. And I don't mean that no, you're not allowed to have friends, but look, y'all, we know there are people that their motives are not the same as the other person.
Yeah.
And in the name of friendship, they may not have that agenda in their mind. And maybe the other person thinks everything is just fine.
Well, and I found that some people that are, they move on, they date someone, maybe they're just friends to begin with. But then let's just say you have a guy friend and he meets someone, he's getting engaged to her, he loves her, he wants to marry her, and then you're losing him to her, even though they're just friends, that you haven't slept with him or anything. But that's still kind of an issue for some people, and then they kind of still try and stay relevant, text, call, try and get on a phone call once a week or something. Like, they want to be a relevant person still. What do you do if let's just say you're marrying someone and they are still talking to ex-girlfriends? I'm not saying like lovers, but what do you think? What's
friends that are girls?
Yeah.
To me, I just kind of base it back to how would I be? Mm-hmm. And I'm certainly not going to say like you just cut off all your friendships because, in my situation, y'all, most of my male friends are gay. Because of the business that the line of work. So there's no, that's not really a problem. But I would, there have been a number of people that over the time have, on holidays or whatever, hey, I just want to wish you. And while I want to be kind and I do reply, I'm just not going to engage in conversation.
Right. You're not going to linger there. Out of respect.
Out of total respect. Because I personally don't want to.
You wouldn't want that.
It's not just that, but I'm not comfortable
right
being that way,
because you might sense that he's wanting more, or
I just don't want the
The
impression
appearance.
to, or the appearance to be like, she's open to this. I'm not.
I had to tell you something. I was engaged a long time ago, and and this man's calls her his best friend. They had traveled together, gone to Hawaii, hiked mountains together. She's a real active. She's kind of athletic, and so was he. And they loved kind of doing fun sport things together. And he'd known her for years. And I remember her name was Jeannie. And he said, I just can't wait for you to meet Jeannie. You're going to love Jeannie. And I was excited to meet her. I thought, this will be great. I'm going to meet. Yeah, I dreamed Jeannie. I was excited to meet her. She was a nice looking girl. I just thought I'd probably get along with her. The first interaction with her, she says to me, yeah, I'm his best friend. I love him. And if you hurt him, I'm going to kill you. And I didn't know whether she didn't sound like she was kidding. And I was a little gobsmacked. I didn't know what to say. And he said, well, what happened? She told me I needed to be good to you, and if I wasn't good to you, she's going to kill me. That to me, looking back now, I was a threat. Mm-hmm. And I asked him, are you intimate? Were you intimate? No, but they had done a lot together. And she really, really liked him, and he liked her, but not that way. Right. And so it was one of those, but I think she liked him. I think she liked him and wanted intimacy with him and never got it.
And I think you guys, male or female, it doesn't matter.
Right.
There's been relationships where, let's say, a guy really likes a girl, but the girl, maybe for whatever reason, maybe she's extra pretty or whatever, and the guy feels like, you know what, I'll just be her good friend because that's my closest way to get close to her, because I'm probably never going to be the boyfriend, but maybe she'll turn that way and really like me. And it's just kind of his way of just always kind of staying close. Because he's got the crush.
Yeah, or she goes through the breakup, and he's going to be help her heal it. He's going to be her friend. I think so. Yeah.
But again, that goes back to the motive. So if you have two people that their motive is purely friendship, then that's fine. Yeah. Because then you're inviting your other, like your significant other, and you're inviting everybody together.
Right.
I always think like, if you're just friends, then have the conversations in front of me.
Yes.
Or, whoever it is.
Or include me in the plans.
Right. Yeah, or invite them over. Like, I wouldn't have a problem. Right. I wouldn't have a problem with that. But I think sometimes...
But even then, let's just look at that. Let's just say you have a best friend that is, and they are just legitimate friends. And that's true, and they can prove that, like, there's no problem, and you don't feel threatened by that at all. But at some point, your relationship, if you're going to be in a committed, loving marriage type relationship, that's got to take precedent over the friend.
Yeah. Oh, for
and
sure.
At some point, that's going to come into conflict, maybe. I've had that happen to me. So.
Well, and what happens sometimes is when you have a person that's in the relationship.
Yes.
And then you have the friend or whatever they were that's not, they don't see the boundary or the time frame, or you know what I'm saying? Whereas a person that's in a relationship is spending time with that other person. Right. But this one over here is like, well, I don't have anything going on. Why can't you talk to me?
Right.
We used to always talk. Why aren't we talking now?
That's right,
and to me, I think, gosh, read the room.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I do weddings, right? And I will say to the audience, look, y'all, these people are creating a sacred space, and they're promised to each other. And I'm asking you to, when one of them calls, when they've had a fight, and you've been their BFF forever, and they call you, and she's of this and he's of that, you look at them, or you say to them, look, I was there at your wedding, and you said tell death to be part kind of thing. So I'm standing for your marriage. So I'm going to ask you to, go back and deal with it. Hold them to account, because that's ultimately what's going to happen. You have a fight. Well, I'm just going to go hang out with her. She's cool. She never pushes back. She never tells me no.
Right.
She's like a dude to me,
Right.
But what if that girl really, really likes you and she ain't like a dude?
Yeah.
And again, I can't tell you how many fights that people have had because of this kind of situation. And you don't want that person, but your partner who you just fought with doesn't know that. What
about when people all of a sudden turn sex into like the surprise? And the sad thing is it, so whoever is the instigator of like all of a sudden out of nowhere,
you were drunk.
And then, but maybe the other person is like, oh, no. It ruins everything.
It can. Absolutely.
It just makes it like it's the person that it happened to. I like to say maybe the person A
It's like, there you go, yeah.
Person A is making the moves on person B. Now person B is like, I don't know how to be your friend anymore.
Well, you
like,
can't, that kind of
just
kills that.
Yeah.
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 And can you go backward? And this is one thing I always tell couples when I work with them. Anybody that you've had prior sexual relations with or romantic intentions toward probably isn't going to be in your future if they were friends or whatever. Because again, that's just kind of like, well, I probably shouldn't have that person around because that could happen again. It's easier to happen again.
Or what if, but yes, for sure. But what if person B never had a desire to have anything sexual with person A, but person A wanted to have it with person B? To me, it's still like you got to read the motives.
Yes.
Why is this person still in your life? Why are they showing up? Because really a good friend would be, hey, you know what? I'm so thrilled and happy for you. I'm going to respect your time and space.
Boundaries.
And I would love to get to know your partner, but let's make sure we do it as double couples or, whatever it is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Where it feels like it's a no. You just know where it's coming from.
And again, if it really is legitimately a friendship, it will be very conscientious. You'll invite. There'll be, you'll probably spend more time talking to, if I'm a female, talking to the female than a male, because you want to make sure that there's no appearance of any impropriety.
Right. Yeah. We have a mutual friend that I know her boyfriend, and they've been living together for a long time. Mm-hmm. And this was a few years ago. He was driving past my house. I hadn't seen him in years. And all of a sudden, his truck stops. He backs up. And he's like, Gretchen. And I said to this guy's name, I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you forever. Yeah, me too, blah, blah, blah. He ended up living just around the corner.
Wow.
So this was summertime, and I said, hey, why don't you come over tonight, and we'll sit outside and catch up. And he goes, well, I'm going to be with my girlfriend, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, bring her too.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, I wanted to make sure, my intentions are not to, which we never dated. We just knew each other, kind of a thing. And as it turned out, Kelsey became good friends with.
Oh, yeah, cute girl.
Camille and I. And she's a great, great girl, but I never had any, motive thinking, I haven't talked to you in a while. Let's go on a date.
Right.
But he was respectful enough to be like, A, I'm with somebody.
I like that.
And B, I don't know that that's a good idea because, and I respect that too.
Yeah.
So I think that you need to be in a relationship where you can talk about, this may or may not fit well with me if this happens.
That's right.
And not be the over needy person that's like, I need to gobble up all your time. And, and I think sometimes you probably see this. Sometimes it forces people, which I don't like that word because you're still accountable for your own actions, but to be in secret and do things in secrecy.
Absolutely. Well, and what about the ex-spouses that just gobble up time, create drama, try and sabotage your relationship? The girls don't like your new husband. The boys don't like whatever. I see that all the time too.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is motive there probably. They want you to fail. Yeah.
Right. Or they're still in love and them in the name of the kids, I'm going to be around and we need to talk and we need to,
And there needs to be enough time between the divorce. You need to be divorced. Okay. Oh, the paperwork's are in. Now, get divorced. There is a shift. When you got divorced, wasn't there a shift after everything's just done? Paperwork's final. There is a shift in you after that's done. It's like it's real, You're finally single. But I see a lot of people who are like, it's still kind of in play. Paperwork's not signed by the judge yet. And they're kind of just playing. And then they are with somebody, maybe the rebound, call it. And as soon as that divorce is done, they're done with that rebound relationship. They're done. Because now I'm free. You're part of I get out of it, I watch people use people all the time like that.
Yeah. How do you help the ones that are...
They're used?
Yeah.
I point out, well, your list, which should have been, he's single, he's sober, she's single, she's sober, self-reliant, again, there's a list of things to do. But I always say, did you know that they were still married? Well, but I always say, I'm going to point out, the but doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. You really are dealing with someone who's still not single. And then they need time to rebound. You were the rebound. I'm straight. I just make them feel bad, I guess.
Yeah. What about dating etiquette though? Once you're out of a relationship and it's time to
Move on.
They think it's time to, get back out there and whatever. We created a television show kind of based around how to start over in your life with relationships when it comes to dating.
Yes.
Simply because, what Camille and I have seen is the majority of people go back to what they know, but what they know they're no longer married to. So why are you going to take that on again? Doesn't have to be from that person, but it's the same characteristics.
That's right.
I think one of the best advice that Camille gives to people in relationships is go be alone.
Yeah.
Have some time to be alone so that you're not expecting someone else to come in and fill the cup.
Yeah. But if you can't be alone, it's because you got something going on over here that you don't want to feel and be with. But it's true, you need to be alone for a while so you know what happened, process through it. You're over the angers, you're over the frustration.
Right.
But if you bump into someone new, that's just, again, you're going to bring drama into their life. And that person's just part of the game,
And I think, too, I almost think you need to have a game plan before drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of the time people get kind of sappy and they get kind of sentimental. And that's when they usually go back and then they regret.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and even the partners that maybe they're, maybe they feel sorry for their ex. They feel so bad. They don't want to be mean. Oh, well, I left them, but they still get hoovered. I call it hoovered, because that person sucked in and they get hoovered, right? Yeah. And so the hoovering experience happens because I felt so sorry for her and she was, she was crying, or she finally said she was sorry. Or again, that's the kind of stuff you got to be able to get past before you bring in another person, because you're still vulnerable to their sympathetic ploys, or I'm sorry now. I see it now. I've grown. I've learned. And if you still have a tendency to want to, still connect with them on some level, you will go back and you'll make a mistake again.
Okay, what about the etiquette of when a partner points out in public your negative flaws?
Ooh, that's a big problem.
Or makes fun of them, derogatory stuff.
Yeah, you got to wonder why a person would do that. Is it to get them off their scent? If I can make an introvert, make you feel bad about yourself, you're not going to be seeing what I'm up to. But to me, there's a motive behind that. And maybe it's just to break that person or to make them feel bad. But all of that is to suppress that partner and make them not see something usually. I call those guilt trips, or, again, just suppressive. They just want to be mean. Mm-hmm. Make you doubt yourself. That's the end result usually is, yeah, maybe I am. It's embarrassing. It makes you feel small and inadequate. And that's usually because they're feeling small and inadequate. But there's a motive behind that.
And when you feel small and inadequate, you don't trust that person. Because chances are, the moment in front of the crowd, you still got to go home with them.
Yeah.
And that's going to be an issue. It's funny, I just did a story on this article that talks about phrases that people use that classy people don't like, but the majority of the world is fine with. And one of the phrases was, "I'm just kidding." Another phrase was, "I'm just being honest." Mm-hmm. So that basically was given permission to be
verbally abusive, probably.
Yeah. I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
That to me, that never, or a yes, but.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the other statements was whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. But that's someone who's non-committal and they don't want to be responsible or held to account for what they're saying. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to see how they're causing pain. They're causing pain.
One of the things that Aaron and I do, random, it's not like it's a chore, but we'll just sporadically be like, 5 things I love about Aaron. No particular order.
Nice.
And it's just, in the moment, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be the same thing all the time.
Yeah.
And what that does is it lets the person know you pay attention to them.
Yeah.
You recognize the good, maybe some of the things that are said, like, I didn't know that. I didn't, what? You noticed that?
Yeah.
And it just makes you feel like you're validated, that you're important, and that you are thought about even when you're not there.
Yeah.
So those are, that's been something that has been fun.
Yeah.
We also do, we'll say at the top of the day, like, what do you want the universe to show you today?
Nice.
And he'll say, like, a flamingo. And I'll be like, okay, well, I'm going to see a windmill. And at the end of the day, we're like, hey, did you see? Yeah, I did. And, it's a game that we can play together, but it's also kind of a spiritual, like, we're both on the same path,
You're kind of working with the universe there.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, if any of this stuff sounds like you would love us to come chat with you and your people, we do seminars, we do one-on-one, we do, we're dynamic in front of the crowd, man. We help you. Whatever's blocking you from starting over, we get to the root of, we pluck it out, and we help you feel better.
Help you feel better. We also want you to know that this applies to corporate people as well. So if you're corporate training and you've got teams in businesses and things like that, all of starting over, especially in business, in a mindset is very important. So
keep your people fresh. That's right.
You can go to startingovercommunications.com, message us there, and we would be happy to respond back to you. But until next time, everybody, we'll see you for Starting Over again. Bye.
Bye.